Well, peace, 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 beloveds. This is Oracle Deborah with the Oracle Deborah podcast on YouTube. Um, Tonight or this morning, I'm going to talk about this fake gender war that's taking place. And I wouldn't say fake, I would say more or less an illusion of a gender war going on. And it was triggered again by the Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson breakup. But before I get started, please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks to everyone who has been liking and sharing and subscribing. So I appreciate you very much. So let's get into it. So there's a lot of videos. People are making a lot of money over this Megan Thee Stallion, Klay Thomas breakup. There's also an added element to it with a young woman named Lexi, who's being accused of being the person behind the cheating scandal with Klay. And she has gone on camera stating that it's not her and she's been dragged. And I think she had to shut down her social media accounts because of the threats and things of that nature. And neither Klay nor Megan have come to her defense. So, excuse my voice, it is early in the morning. And so, again, I'm seeing like all these videos. Like, now, one video, I would say two, but one specific video a brother did, and he's being really mature about this situation, not with Megan Klay, but with Ashley Janae, who was deleted in Tanzania. And he is being very mature about his take of that situation, um, and looking at it as a life that was lost tragically. So I kind of want to give a shout out to that brother. I wish I knew his name. I don't have his video in front of me. But getting back to the Klay and Megan situation, there was another brother. I think it was actually a team who were discussing, this whole quote unquote gender war. And so it dawned on me in that moment. And they were being, I think, as objective as possible about everything. But it dawned on me in that moment that this whole gender war thing is just an illusion. We are bringing it to light because we keep calling it a gender war. And the thing about the mind, even our feelings and our perceptions and our interpretation of what we are seeing happening in the world and in our own personal lives, and especially when we start seeing a pattern of things where we feel like, okay, this is an issue, we need to address it. But the whole point of addressing it is to come to some sort of solution. And the situation with, I don't think it's the majority of Black men and Black women, but it's definitely a minority that is creating a lot of problems in hoopla. And actually, that minority is growing because these are, I would say, these are men who generally just have their views and feelings about Black women. And some Black men really don't like Black women. I mean, I think that part is true. And then you have these celebrities who have following of this loyal base, almost cult-like. And no matter what happens to that person or whatever that particular celebrity says, they follow it to a T. And and I'm not saying all the women are cult-like, the men too, that are engaged in this stuff. But the thing with the mind is we bring, we initiate manifestation by our thoughts. We initiate it. And the more we think about it, the more we get frustrated with it, the more our feelings come into play with it, um, the more emotion we give it, the more attention we give it, the more likely it will come into fruition. So, in essence, when I say it's an illusion, is that um, the fact that we're calling it a gender war is an illusion. Now, am I saying that there are not problems in relationships? No. Am I saying that there uh, is no domestic abuse? No. And domestic abuse can be on both sides. So I'm not saying that, any of that. But when we get to the point where we start calling it a war, that's when, we start to deal with, an illusion. And my thing is, if we would begin to shift our thoughts, and we can, because I would say probably 95% of us are not, that are online talking about this, is not or are not in some sort of domestic violence situation. We are just um, having dialogue about something that we're frustrated with, right? Men are frustrated with women, women are frustrated with men. And the thing is, it keeps growing because we keep giving it this negative attention. And again, I'm not minimizing anybody's hurt or pain or anything like that. I'm not doing that. But what I am saying is collectively, we are making, we are creating a monster out of our frustrations, i.e., our negative thoughts. And if we were to collectively begin to start seeing things from a more balanced perspective, or be more objective about certain matters or situations, or even just remove some of the emotion from the frustration we feel, then we will find that we have normal couples having normal, you know, um, disagreements, if you will. And then when you drill down into like the couples too have the responsibility of stepping back and asking for a different perspective in their situation that they are frustrated. So again, and I take ownership that I played a part in this as well, because I look back on history and I see, things that have been occurring since, I was young that I witnessed. No, no, yeah, some things I witnessed, but more so the stories. I got more of those stories passed down to me. And then as I became an adult, I had my own situations. So, I take history and I add to the mix by recalling the history. And so, but it's getting to a point where you have, in this situation with Meg Thee Stallion and Clay, these are two very high profile, essentially rich people who had a very high profile public relationship. And it it ended honestly as quickly as it started, just about. And that's the case with a lot of relationships that start quickly and blow up really quickly. It's almost like a love bombing thing, and then it ends just as quickly. So that's all I saw in this situation. And the fact that they have escalated it to gender war for clickbait reasons to make money, whatever. But that's when I felt like I had to, or I wanted to kind of get on here and add my 2 cents to this. Um, because honestly, it's gone too far. People had just found a situation to create money. And technically, you know, Meg Thee Stallion created the drama by putting it out there publicly, right? By making a public statement. Again, this had a lot to do with this, what I call this hybrid full moon in Libra and Scorpio, where we were called, the messy court was called into session. And this situation was definitely messy. So the fact that Meg Thee Stallion put this statement out there, this was like, okay, we have some content, we can make some money. But the thing is, the and I speak for the foundational Black community only. I speak on that top or on that group on I don't speak on behalf of all of us. I'm just saying I am an FBA woman, so I'm speaking on what I know, right? And I know for us, we have a lot of challenges as it is in this world, and I'm so proud of us because our delineation movement is making beautiful waves in the political sector. And of course, I wanted to, you know, I want to see it, continue to blossom and grow in our favor, right? So I'm very happy about that portion of what we're doing in that space. Even though we still have disagreements within our community about it, the fact of the matter is the delineation movement has taken great traction and has become, a brand in and of, not a brand, but it is taking on, it's become a pillar in and of itself in terms of who we are and how we are identifying who we are. And people are taking notice. It's not even taking notice. They recognize it as, okay, we actually have to deal with this type of thing. And so, of course, I want to see that type of energy in our relationships with one another. And because, this thing with Meg and Clay has, you know, evolved into a quote unquote gender war, that to me went too far. That this was not a case where it deserved that. Even when I hear some of the men talk about, the situation with Clay, he's no longer with the Warriors. He's now in Houston. Maybe it was a situation where he's getting acclimated to Houston. He meets Meg Thee Stallion. I don't know how they met. And he creates, he starts a relationship with her. And again, they were both very public about it. I don't know the deal with Meg Thee Stallion, but on her end, maybe I do know a little bit on her end, she has a series of circumstances where she's also been in the news primarily for the Tory Lanez situation, the shooting, her foot getting shot. And, but also she gave interviews with Gayle King and she admitted that she lied about certain things, on that. And then there are other men in her, background where it didn't work out well. And she's dated other men in the high elite sports sector. So to me, these are two performers. But this is how I see it. These are just two performers. They got together. Now, I was a little surprised um, by their union, but as things, evolved and went along, I thought maybe this is serious. And, you know, I didn't take Meg the Stallion seriously because, when you get out there twerking for votes, I don't take you seriously. That's just me. So I didn't take her seriously. I've never bought any of her music. I don't subscribe to what she puts out there. Um, and I don't like the how she, um, influences, millions of young women. Okay. I don't like what she puts out there. And so she was not, I'm not a fan of hers. I mean, it just is what it is. And there's no big deal, no love loss, from her end. But I wasn't a fan of hers. But in this case, I thought if this actually was a union where two people that actually looked like they were from different worlds in a way, found their soulmate and this thing was working. I was okay with that. I was good with that. And so I actually I was slightly surprised, by the breakup, the sudden breakup, the statement and all of that. Um, because I had gotten to the point I was like, oh, they must be really serious. That's why. So anyway, to move this right along, um, so again, they are two very high profile people and they're performers to me. And, you know, after, the breakup occurred, I was like, okay. So my initial thoughts about it were correct. Not that I'm trying to be right or anything like that. It's just I had gotten used to them being together and then there was this, sudden breakup, whatever. But naming it as a gender war based on these two, no, that's a no. You know, um, yeah, that's just a big no for me. Clay comes from a different world, you know, and he has amassed quite a bit of wealth over his career as a basketball player. Kudos to him. Kudos to him. Uh, it looks like Meg the Stallion is struggling a little bit in her career, but we're the FBA community is also kind of getting tired of this trashy twerking, you know, or even bashing, the violence and the money from all of this music from across the board. We're tired of it. And so maybe she needs to do a little cleaning up of her act. But at the end of the day, the whole point of this video is really saying that we are giving energy to a situation and calling it a gender war, and it's not even warranted. And that's why I felt like, okay, this is such an illusion that we need to basically melt it by way of our thoughts, by way of thinking differently about things, by way of communicating differently about things, and shifting our perspective to melt this illusion. Because people are, this whole thing between Black men, Black women has gained so much traction that when you start giving it the name agenda war, it just goes too far because you're going to get more of this, more of illusions being manifested into reality. And it's going to be a, a greater deterioration of, a community that has already been pummeled by oppression and other things and being ignored and being trying to be displaced. Nobody's displacing us, but attempts at displacing us. That's also an illusion. So So that's really the gist of me getting on here and saying, let's stop the illusion. Let's call it for what this is. This wasn't a gender war. This is an illusion. And if we could just, again, focus more on the positive, focus on that which is good, direct our thoughts to that which is good, put more of that out in the world, talk more about that part of it, highlight more of those things, then we'll get more of those things because I'm guessing nobody wants to be at odds with one another. There might be a really, I would say, a tiny remnant of people that enjoy this, but I think for the most part, people don't want this. And I know that honestly to be a fact because there's a lot of disappointment with Meg's fans because hoping that she would be, become that wife. And it didn't happen. There was no rain. She just, did some cooking for his family. And from what I could tell, because I don't follow them, but based on the limited feedback I got from other influencers, is that it was one sided. It was more one sided, where she was doing more than he was. So that's my point in this. That's my thoughts on this. Let's dissolve the illusion of a gender war between FBA men and women, and let's just shift our perspectives and focus our thoughts on, that which is good, because we have a greater, a greater illusion, if you will, at play that we have gained so much traction in terms of reestablishing who we are as the phenomenal people that we are. That's the point. We are a phenomenal people. And we really do um, need the relationships and the family dynamic to build, not just build a greater stability, but also to build our wealth. And I know everything is not about money, but we do live in a capitalistic economy. There's some things we're not going to get around. A, we live in a capitalistic economy. B, families create nations, right? A nation starts from one family unit. And the three, um, oh shoot, what was the third one I was going to add? Oh crap, I lost my train of thought. It's too late. It's too late and early in the morning. Oh crap, what was the third one? All right, I'll remember it. But yeah, so and that we are governed by laws such as duality, right? That's a given. There's also the law of vibration. That's a given. There's the law of one mind. That's a given. So, there are just laws that we live by. The law of cause and effect. That's a given. So we have these laws that govern us, and they are real, and we put them into play. Whether we put them into play or not, they're in effect. Period. That's why I said, the law of thought, I'm calling it that precept of, what we are thinking, it's in play, whether we do it intentionally or not. And the universe doesn't signify, oh, no, I don't want to bring that into manifestation or fruition because this will hurt this person. No, it doesn't look at it that way. It says, where are your thoughts? What are your beliefs? Where's your faith going? Where's your conviction? What is it that you know that you know that you know? Oh, that thing? Okay. Because it operates out of the law of thought. So let's be more intentional about our thoughts. Just take that into consideration, more than consideration. Be mindful even in your personal life. You are operating under a law and not being intentional about it. So, look at your life. Are you happy with life? Then that means you're on the right track. If you're not, that means you're not on the right track. And even if you're on the right track in 90% of your life, there might be a 10%, it usually is, at least one area that's really difficult, that seems like a thorn in the side, that you can't seem to like overcome. So that's a great opportunity to put this law of thought, cause and effect, make it more intentional, be more intentional about it. So, for our influencers, again, I respect the fact that you're monetized and you're making money, but let's be more intentional about building up of our community, about feeding and edifying our community, because the relationship piece is critical to our overall economic health. So if we can, you know, not do the clickbait when it comes to matters like this, that's going to affect our overall survival or our way of living, then let's do that. There's a ton of million things you could clickbait on, but I think we need to really avoid this particular topic and calling things like this agenda war or just promoting a war. Just by you putting it out there, you're promoting a war. This is what you're doing. This is what I was a part of. This is what I did unintentionally, but I'm more intentional now. So that's my thought on this. I hope my voice wasn't too raspy. It comes through, pretty decent so that I don't have to redo this video. Anyway, beloveds, take care, be blessed, and I shall talk to you soon. Peace, peace.